Voter suppression. What is with voter suppression, you ask? Well, thank you for asking, and I'll tell you. Why is it that the Democratic Party will not acknowledge the voter suppression that is going on throughout not only the predominantly red or purple states, as they're referred to, but pretty much through any swing state that's relevant? Greg Palast, who wrote Best Democracy Money Can Buy, and has written other great books, has done work on elections since the 2000 election. He found out, of course, uncovered the Diebold voting machine issues, or he was one of the people that discovered those issues, that the Republicans were actually programming these Diebold machines. When you would push Gore, it would go to Bush. There was a gentleman that was going to testify. He was flying his private plane with servers. He'd actually worked for Karl Rove, who was George W. Bush's Svengali, if you will. He was his main political advisor, and had been when he was governor of Texas as well. Karl Rove, of course, an acolyte of Lee Atwater in the Reagan years, and look that up. It's some fascinating stuff. Anyway, Greg Palast has discovered with his recent work, he's made a really good documentary, and he's made a few really good documentaries, but the one he most recently made is Renegades, and it's about these people. They're Trump supporters, and they're getting together and basically suing attorney generals of these different states. They're challenging votes, they're challenging ballots, and they're doing it quite aggressively, and they're funded quite well. This is all that Project 2025 stuff, that sort of, we want to suppress votes by claiming that illegal immigrants are voting, and there hasn't been good evidence that an illegal immigrant has voted and their vote has counted in the United States in the last election, or really in any presidential election. This is a myth that the GOP has created so they can further oppress the other. It's fascism. Blame the other. And that's what all of the problems in America boil down to: illegal immigration. That's what the Republicans and the GOP want you to believe. Every economic problem you're having is because somebody came in from the southern border illegally and took a landscaping job. So the voter suppression that's going on right now, that Greg Palast has uncovered, Greg Palast is a statistical guy. He's a stat guy. So he understands the science of it, the mathematics of it, and how to actually correctly read and interpret statistics. And I suggest you go to gregpalast.com and just check him out. Or if you listen to the Tom Hartman show, he's on Tom Hartman a lot. He doesn't get a lot of play. Particularly, I don't know that he just doesn't do a lot of independent media, but independent media tends not to have him on as much. And I don't think it's because they don't want him on or any of that thing. I think Greg Palast is a journalist and he doesn't like to do, I don't know, maybe he does and he's not being asked. I just don't know. I certainly am not going to ask him because I don't think he would get back to me. I don't have any followers, so I doubt he would. Anyway, so this voter suppression movie, Renegades, has shown that about 3.5 million people, mostly people of color, mostly Democratic voters, have had their vote suppressed just in this last presidential election in 2020-24. It's funny that the Democratic Party never brings any of this up. I never hear AOC or Bernie Sanders bring any of this up. They're the two ones that are in front now. And they're going to be the leaders of the Democratic Party, along with like Pete Buttigieg and whatever other bad decisions that the Democratic Party will continue to make and keep losing to Republicans who are stealing elections and suppressing voters. This goes in hand with what Donald Trump did yesterday with his executive orders, signing, I don't know, like 100 executive orders or 60 executive orders, 60 to 100. It was an amazing number. And it was all about voter suppression. You need to have ID. You need to prove you're an American citizen. You need to, all of these different things that you have to do now to vote in a presidential election, which you never had to do before. This affects the poor. This affects the elderly. This affects people that generally vote Democrat. Now, why the Democratic Party would be silent on this and ignore Greg Palast's work, I mean, not entirely, but do you see Greg Palast on CNN? Do you see him going in front of Congress and them doing I know it's controlled by Republicans now, but do you see, you never hear him really talked about in the Democratic Party apparatus. Like they never bring him up. And I don't know, I'm just guessing here. This is just guessing, but I think it has something to do with the 2000 elections and the Democratic Party. Do you remember Gore Lieberman losing to Bush in Florida? It was the recount was stopped by the Supreme Court of the United States. Supreme Court then anointed George W. Bush as president. He lost by something like less than 600 votes in Florida. George Bush's brother, of course, is Jeb Bush, who was governor of Florida, and Kathleen Harris, who was a Bush supporter and was appointed by Bush. She was head of elections in Florida. And she clearly, they were rigging the election for George Bush. And the Supreme Court stepped in and did what the Supreme Court always does. It protects the oligarchs. It protects the power structure, the left and the right, the Republican and Democrat, because all of those Supreme Court justices are Republicans or Democrats. So there's their power structure. You live in a duopoly that doesn't work, right? And these people continue to preserve it. And they never talk about this voter suppression. And now now Trump has put it into law, is trying to put it into law, that you cannot vote in a federal election if you can't prove who you are. If you don't have a federal ID or whatever. This reminds me, and I know it's not the same, but it reminds me of this real ID bullshit. It's like, why do I need to show you my passport or go get another ID to fly in the United States? There's so much security now at any major airport. Why do I need to go get another identification? Why is my state ID that you can scan the barcode on the back and see who I am, which they do? Why is it now that I have to go now get another ID, or I have to show you my fucking passport? I'm in the United States. I'm a United States citizen. You're asking me to show my papers before I can travel. Sound fascist to you? Does to me. Anyway, sounds authoritarian, sounds oppressive. But we'll use immigrants to get this instituted into everybody. So now it won't just be because you MAGA thinks it's just going to be migrants. It'll be you too. It'll be your grandma. It'll be your grandpappy. It'll be the old lady that has never had an ID in her life because she doesn't need it. Somebody who comes in. Forget that you're trying an illegal. And what would be the incentive for an illegal immigrant to vote in an election? They get caught and go and get deported. They break a federal law, and go to jail. It simply doesn't happen. Illegal immigrants don't vote for president. They don't vote at all. But there's this image, this thing where Republicans, MAGA, has convinced themselves because of their leadership that there are busloads of illegal immigrants being bussed into poll stations. So we have to get there with our guns and our AR-15s and our and we have to stand there and protect the integrity of our elections. That's not what these people are interested in. They're interested in getting their person elected. Nobody shows up with an AR-15 at a polling place, and isn't a MAGA supporter or isn't a conservative. Democrats don't come show up and monitor. If they do show up and monitor the integrity, they're doing it in an official capacity. So this is voter suppression in many different ways. It's intimidation. It's getting laws so people who feel like, can you imagine I know citizens who don't speak English very well or at all. Now you're even making sure that they don't vote. You have people in the country like the most marginalized groups. And if they don't have their ID, they won't get to vote. Or they'll get to vote, but their ballot will be thrown away. That's another thing people forget. You go, well, I voted. Do you know if your vote counted or not? Do you know if they threw it out or not? Because of these voter suppression laws, these vigilante types who are spending tens of millions of dollars all over the United States to get ballots thrown out. And they're all MAGA. By the way, this goes back to 2000. The 2000 election, the 2004 election, look up Ohio in the 2004 election. And then, of course, in 2008, the Bushes tried to run, the Bushes could no longer run, the George Bush could no longer run. So then you had Obama. And I don't know, there was some voters, Democrats don't steal votes. They don't do that because they just don't. It's the Republicans. It's the Republicans that gerrymander, they redistrict, and they suppress votes. And those two things have fundamentally in the last 25 years changed the way American politics, not changed, because America was always an empire, but it solidified a corruption that has been accepted by the two parties. as long as the Democratic Party's in charge or the Republican Party's in charge, both parties are pacified. They want to win. Of course they want to win and be in power. But if one of those, then they just kind of sit back, play the opposition game, wait for inevitably the Democratic Party to fuck up or the Republican Party to fuck up, overstep their bounds, which they're doing right now, which you see with MAGA. And then the Democrats swoop in. It's what James Carville's saying. Just sit back. Don't do anything. Let him kill himself. And so, and that's a terrible strategy. And that's exactly what the American public doesn't want. But anyway, that's never here nor there. But this voter suppression thing is real. This is Project 2025. It's in there about voter ID and eventually having an ID a federal ID like the one you have to fly with. Now, you ask yourself this: what in the fuck is happening to this country and this country's always sucked, but at least inside of it you had freedoms to move around. You didn't have to. What's next? Am I going to be crossing the border into California? Oh wait, that already exists. You ever been across the border in certain places in California or gone in California and see the border patrol places where you pull up in your car and they have dogs? They're not looking for drugs, they're looking for human beings. And they want to see your ID and they want to see your registration and they want to see, I'm in the United States. Why are you oppressing me? Why are you stopping me from doing what I want? Why are you stopping me? If you can't see the fascism on that end, and that was going on during the Biden administration as well, in liberal California. This is a fascist takeover of your country, an authoritarian takeover, which was always that way, but now they're going to make laws to ossify their power. I guarantee you they're going to try to get rid of the 22nd Amendment. They're going to try to get Trump to be able to run 4 more years. And if they don't get that done, they already have enough of these MAGA chuds in the wings that are ready to take Elon Musk's money and all the venture capitalist money and run with MAGA. Although they don't quite have the name or the cachet that Donald Trump has. So I don't know if that'll work as well for Ted Cruz or J.D. Vance or, God forbid, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Marco Rubio, all these little ghouls who want to be president. But anyway, this voter suppression thing is very real. It is very serious. And everyone should just go check Greg Palast out. Go to gregpalast.com, read his stuff, watch his movie. You can watch it for free. See what you think about it. See if it fucking makes any sense. And see the further decline of your empire. The further cultural decline that is happening in America. And it's the end of empire. We're at the end of empire. I will say this probably in every video that I make. MAGA will take down the empire without meaning to. They will strip. They will allow everything to get stripped because they think that from the federal government, because they think that the federal government is an oppressive force to them. And the deep state needs to be taken down. They don't know what the deep state is. There is no real deep state. That's been shown out from Trump and his executive orders and how Trump has approached foreign policy and how Trump has done everything in the last 90 days, basically, to be a totalitarian dictator type who wants to bring Christo-fascism into this country, wants to put all of the blame on the other and cut rich people's taxes, who are actually the ones that are the problem. We want to increase military spending, and we're going to cut your social services. And that will not work. It's past voodoo economics. I mean, it's past Reaganomics. It's something much more vile. And the hatred for the immigrant, the hatred for the other, the hatred for one's opponents and enemies, the hatred that is coming out of MAGA is breathtaking. It's a level of hate that Stephen Miller is maybe the most hate-filled person that I've ever seen, and he looks like it inside and out. And he's Trump's main political advisor and has been since the first administration. So again, voter suppression is very real. The Democratic Party doesn't want to talk about it, and it's odd. I think it's because they don't want to be called sore losermans again. I think it's because they don't really care as long as one of the two parties remains in power. Thank you for listening.